to the Ballard Institute online. We're so happy that you're here again to join us. I'm really glad that you're here. I'm Felicia Cooper. I'm the graduate assistant here at the Ballard Institute and Museum of Puppetry, and I'm a grad student in the Puppet Arts program at the University of Connecticut. Today, we're going to be doing some object performance exploration. So if you're joining us without any prior knowledge, it's a little bit more performance-based, a little bit less craft-based. You won't walk away from this workshop with anything in your hands other than these new puppets that you might not have thought were puppets before. But before we start, I always like to just stretch a little bit, stretch all the way up to the sky. Maybe you've been sitting around all day, just do maybe stretch to the side, stretch to the other side, maybe stretch all the way down and roll up. Wiggle it out, shake it up. Oh, you look so good when you're dancing like that. Do some more. Yeah, it feels good to move around. But now, as we're getting towards a more creative, centered process, let's take a couple deep breaths together, which is how I always like to start. So you're going to go in through your nose, hold it for a second, and then out. Ready? We'll do 3. Ready? In. 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 Oh, that feels nice. Feels good to be here with you today. So, like I said, we're going to be doing some object performance here today. And if you've never done that before, you probably have. Whether you were playing around with just like toys and stuff like that you already have at home, you've probably done something like this before. But just to get us started, just to get us in the mindset, I'm going to ask everybody to close their eyes again and just kind of imagine that you're an alien and that you've never been to Earth before and that you're looking at all these objects for the first time and you don't know what's alive and what's not alive. Ready? On the count of 3, we're going to open our eyes together. 1, 2, 3. Oh, man. What's all this? This kind of, you're kind of imagining how things might move, if they would move. I've done object performances. We've done a lot of food object performances at UConn, but also toys. I did one with plants. I really love plants. All sorts of different things that you can do. So just imagine, what's inspiring to you. And as I'm looking at these things, I'm going to pick up this beautiful peacock feather. And I like to clear my space, maybe get the other things out of the way. And I'm going to say how would this thing breathe? And we just breathe together, right? And the way that we breathe was in, hold, and out. And I kind of like to think of those as the 3 sections of a breath in puppetry, right? In, hold, out. So how might this guy breathe? Or whatever you have with you. How might whatever you have breathe? Ready? So it's maybe like, it's a feather. Something with a lot of kind of ambient movement is going to be really good for stuff like this. Maybe it kind of breathes like, or maybe you have something that doesn't have that kind of ambient movement. Maybe you have something like, I used to really like to play with my mom's hair clips when I was a little kid. So maybe this one just kind of breathes, here, I'll bring it close to the camera. Maybe breathes with a little bit more like, things breathe different, all kinds of different ways, right? And, another thing with whatever character that you have is, I like to imagine that this character's first time on this planet, right? And so maybe it's kind of looking around. We have our breath. I think anytime you watch a puppet show, breath is going to be really important. It's really important to know that things are breathing, things are alive. That's something I think most people look for when they're watching something. And maybe it's something where it just breathes very, very subtle. Maybe not. Maybe it like, what are the different kinds of breaths that you can explore? And feel free to play around with this as long as you like, right? Like we talked about in our last video that we were here together for, puppetry is a really personal thing, you know? It's all about what you see and what inspires you. I'm often really inspired by materials. I know a lot of other artists are as well. So let me think. Yeah, I think the feather, I'll stick with the feather for a while. I really like this kind of like, so now I'm thinking about how does the feather look at something, right? And these are principles that you would have in any puppet that you would want to use, right? Whether you're just using a sock puppet or a marionette, it's important where the puppet is looking because that helps us know what the puppet is perceiving at that moment. So maybe the puppet has its eyes. You know, this is kind of obvious, but what about a feather like this? Where is this feather's eyes? And you can kind of imagine it wherever you decide that it might be, right? So maybe I'm going to say the eyes are right at this kind of bend here. And the puppet's looking all around and just saw you. Amazing. Okay, so then the puppet is very exciting. The puppet is maybe excited. It has a bunch of different emotions that it conveys with its eyes. Now that now that it has eyes, it can start to look around, right? And one exercise that I really like to do whenever I'm thinking about puppets with people who are new to puppets or people who have been doing puppets a long time is I like to imagine wherever you place the eyes, it's like watching a tennis match. Maybe they're watching 2 tennis matches. Right? And I think if you can, it's like yoga, where if you connect it to breath, it's going to be a lot easier for you to kind of keep track of where you are. And then sometimes I like to imagine that we're watching a parade together. Oh, what a nice parade. Whoa! Whoa! Right? You can imagine all sorts of different things that it's looking at. And this is a time to maybe be a little bit silly, and that's totally awesome and fine. Because we're playing with puppets, and puppets should be fun. So you'll notice that I use 2 things that are similar but not quite the same. And I like to do that a lot when I'm doing object performance because I think there's kind of a lot that we can learn. Oh, let me get this dinosaur friend out of the way. There's a lot that you can learn, right? So thinking about these, I've got 2 spools of thread that are very different. And I'm thinking like, how would they breathe? So we have that very subtle movement. Maybe this one is a little bit of an older guy because he's gray, so maybe he takes longer, shakier breaths. And maybe she takes smaller breaths, or they take smaller breaths. And what might they have to look at together? Where are they looking? And something that's kind of symmetrical on all sides is really fun to play with. And then, of course, you can combine them in as many different ways as you like. Maybe now these are 2 eyes, right? And that's your puppet. Like, there are so many different possibilities just from what you already have at home of all different kind of toys. Like I said, things like this. Keys can be really fun as long as you okay it with the people who they belong to. Like I said, things that are similar but not quite the same are really fun to play with. But things also that let you know how they move are really fun. Like this one, I kind of know how it might move, right? Like it might roll to get to where it's going. But this thread might hop, might kind of waddle. And maybe the other thread walks totally differently, right? Like maybe the other thread is like But you can explore and see what feels good and see what makes sense to your puppets. And by puppets, I mean whatever objects you choose. Yeah, I think this is a really fun exercise. Sometimes I do this if I'm just like bored at home, which I think a lot of us are right now. But maybe it, I like to think about how would it walk, okay? How might it run? How would it walk if it was in a really bad mood? How might it walk if it were really excited to tell you some news? That looked a lot like running. Maybe we can change that up a little bit. And I encourage you, if it's within your capacity as an artist, to be critical of yourself as you're playing with this, right? This is a chance to totally explore whatever it is you want to explore, whether that's movement quality or breath or focus. All of these are kind of big sections of puppetry performance technique, and all things that you can be as critical or just as exploratory as you like, especially in a workshop online with the Ballard Institute. I've been really inspired by nature, and so I'm going to think about maybe how these two pine cones might interact. Like I said, they all might move in different ways. And I really like a nice, clean, clear playing space. Okay, so maybe they're just walking down the street. And if you have a friend to play with, that's even better, right? Maybe they're moving in different ways. And one of them sees something like, oh, what is that? What is what? What is that? Here. And you could just, I know I'm getting a little bit carried away here, but you can get carried away all afternoon if you like, just kind of playing with different objects. We didn't even try. Maybe we need to look at these things in a totally different way. Maybe we need to turn them upside down. And maybe that's what shows us our puppet. But like I said, maybe this is the whole puppet. And you just do a puppet show on a tabletop like this, with just these. Or maybe it becomes something that you add to with your own body. And it walks like this. Oh, were you talking to me? Right? Or maybe it's like, like I said, I'm really inspired by materials. And maybe this is, I don't know, kind of looks like a bird, right? If we had like some feathers back here and a little head up here. Maybe these become mismatched legs, right? And, a lot of my earliest memories of puppetry are not really realizing that they were puppetry. Just my mom, making a teddy bear wave its arm at me felt magical. And I think when I think about the most successful puppetry, it's often something that's very, very simple and something that's already available to so many of us, because puppetry is an art form that wants to be shared. Excuse me for waxing poetic. I just really love puppets so much. But like I said, you can maybe, I think you can discover a lot about the principles of movement and movement qualities and state of being that you want to explore just with the stuff that you have at home. At the Ballard Institute right now, we have some puppets on display that are gumball machine toys from, I think his name is Dove Weinstein. And he did an entire version of Macbeth with just gumball toys, right? And I have a collection of plastic dinosaurs, right? So maybe they just want to play with each other, and that's a whole story. But then it might also, what might these guys have to say to each other? But it also might be fun if I make my dinosaur interact with my feather from before, right? Sorry, like I said, I get carried away. But I think there's just so many ways that you can kind of play and explore. Like I said, some good exercises you might try at home are watching a tennis match, watching a parade go by, breathing in different ways, right? You can tell a lot about someone with how they're breathing. How it says a lot about, I think, their emotional state. And one thing so those are a couple exercises that you can use when you're exploring this movement. But another one might be kind of like how might they speak to each other, right? And maybe it's verbal. Maybe they say like, this is a way to find a puppet voice. Maybe it's like, oh, hello there, Miss Feather. Excuse me. Who are you? Right? Maybe they have a conversation together, or maybe it's nonverbal, right? Maybe there's no words to it. Maybe it's like, I guess you can tell I was a middle child. But there's so many ways that you can play with all these different versions and all these different ways. Another circumstance that I might give to people exploring puppetry for the first time is, what if these two objects were to race each other? Right? What would they, maybe they're revving their engines, right? Like, I'm just really inspired by the way that things look and feel in my hands. But maybe they race each other, and they're kind of like, they're trying to showboat off a little bit, a little bit of Joel Embiid style, trust the process, that kind of thing. And then maybe they roll out. Oh, and they both lost. Maybe this is the referee, and he says, "Sorry day for racing." It's mostly a game of pretend, to be totally honest. But I think the things that you can get specific about are movement quality. Right before they were rolling, now they're moving like this. And that feels like a totally different character, a totally different species. And these can be real puppet shows. Like I said, Dove Weinstein is an example. Yael Rassouli is another example of an artist who uses object performance in an incredible way. Anything can be a puppet, because the only thing that, when people say like, well, what is a puppet? I think a puppet is anything that we're asking an audience to kind of assign agency to and believe in its perspective and believe in its life, right? So if you want to believe that this is alive and has something to say, then you're already believing that it's a puppet. And that's what makes a puppet show, I think, is people believing that together. Now that I'll get off my high horse about puppet shows, like I said, there's a million things in your house that I think are going to make amazing puppets, and that I think you're going to be really excited to keep playing with. Anything that is exciting to you is totally fine. This is just for your own exploration. Maybe you find something that you want to turn into a puppet, like I said. I liked our legs from before, right? It's kind of a lopsided guy. And if I were performing this in a show, I might think like, okay, I gotta get my hands out of the way. But right now we're just exploring. It's just exploration. I wish I could see you guys right now. And if you would like to send any pictures or videos, we would be happy to see them. It would be great to see what you're doing with all of the kind of funny things that we're putting out, including the more experimental ones like this one. So let's go back and let's maybe think about a scene. So I have a pretty basic scene that I'm thinking about, where the puppets might just say like, "Hi, how are you?" Right? So maybe they say like, "Hi, how are you? I'm going to the store. I have to pick up eggs. I've been eating a lot of eggs." So he says like, "Hello. Hello. How are you?" "I'm okay. I need to go to the store." "Oh, to the store? What store are you going to go to?" "Anywhere that has eggs." Maybe you're playing around with these at home. I hope I'm not just doing these by myself. That might be a little bit sad. But hopefully you're playing around with this at home as well. Like I said, any object, if you can make it breathe, if you can make it look at stuff, and if you can make it move in some manner or speak in some manner, you're playing with puppets and you're dealing with puppets and performing objects. The term performing object is one from anthropology. It comes from people observing different rituals, right? So performing object might be something used in a religious ceremony. But I think we can use the term performing object to mean like anything that we're playing with and asking to perform. And you know, I've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, something like 12 objects today. And all of them, I think, have moved differently enough that they all are their own characters. And I think that's really what's exciting about object performance. Like I said, clear space, clear space. But maybe these two. I know we already raced, but racing is so fun because which do you think is going to win? Yeah, I think this guy. Oh, they're so slow. Oh, they're so slow. Can you cheer them on a little bit? But there's a million ways that you can play with the objects that are already in your home, already things that exist. A little bit more historical context. You might also use the word ready-made to describe any of these objects, right? Because maybe if you don't, if you put them together in the way that I had before, you might not call them ready-made. But if I just use this object and call it a puppet, then I think that comes into the category of ready-made. And a ready-made object, that term, I associate it strongly with Marcel Duchamp in the Dadaist tradition, right? He made fountain with what was a urinal, like stuff like that, right? You can be really inspired by the materials that already exist. Yeah. I also think like sometimes you can make a set that maybe the dinosaur is actually a playground and the thread is gonna go whoop, down the slide and fall down. Oh no! Are you okay? I came back from getting the eggs. Oh, I'm fine. So happy I wasn't carrying your eggs when that happened. Oh, no problem. I've got them safe and sound. And maybe you'll be safe and sound too. Here we go. And these objects can fly, right? Like they can do all these different things. This is just an exploration of movement. But maybe there's things that you find, like I didn't know that I was going to use this thread. It kind of happened accidentally. But things happen accidentally, and that's how creativity starts, right? It's like all of these things that you might not plan for, all of these things, like no one planned to be inside all month, and yet here we are playing with objects together, including my plastic dinosaurs. I'm really just kind of tickled that everyone is able to join us today and that I'm able to explain some of my wacky ideas about what puppets are through the Ballard Institute and Museum of Puppetry. I hope that you'll join us again next time. This time next week, well, Wednesday on the 15th at 2 p.m., we'll be making rod puppets with Abby. And Friday, the 17th, we will be making sock puppets with Maggie. So that's going to be pretty exciting and pretty cool. Let me see. And if you've got any, we've been offering these for free and we're happy to do so. But if you have any inclination towards donating or supporting the Ballard in a financial sense, the link for that is posted in the comments of this. But you just watching is a ton of support, and you sharing this or doing all the ways that you're already interacting with us is really supportive, and we're happy to be here. We're really happy that we've been able to offer so many workshops free of charge online. Yeah, I think that's about all that I have to share for the day. I would like to share a little bit of good news, which is that I saw a golden finch on my hike this morning. A golden finch! It was beautiful. It was so close to me. I had the most lovely song. And then also, a lot of my plants that have been dormant are coming back with the springtime, right? There's little tiny moments of hope that I think a lot of us are starting to experience. But thank you so much for being here with the Ballard Institute Museum of Puppetry online workshop series. We're going to be offering these workshops on our Facebook page every Wednesday and Friday at 2 p.m. However, if you missed this live event, the videos will be available on our Facebook and our YouTube. So feel free to check those out, and then you'll see the archive of all the other ones that we've offered as well. Most of them are more craft-based, about making something, but this one has just been an exploration. Before I go, I want to go over just the last things. So if you're working on puppet performance, we would love to see your videos. Please feel free. And you can do a puppet show just on your tabletop, like I've done here. You can do a puppet show behind your couch, maybe hiding behind it, like this, or like this sort of thing. There's so many different ways that you can do a puppet show, and we would love to see what you're working on. Hopefully we'll have some more that are performance-based like this one. Let us know what you thought, and I hope you have a really good day. Bye, everybody.